Hi, thanks for joining us today in another episode, if you will, of Conversations with amazing band directors from the state of Oregon. This is going to be a really enjoyable talk. It's nice to get away from the thoughts of COVID-19, budget problems, the unrest that's happening in the country, and I can't think of another person to talk to today than Dick Elliott. He is a wonderful band director, but even more a wonderful human being. So please welcome Dick. You're here. How are you today, Dick?
Great, Dave. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be able to share with you and the rest of the folks.
Well, I know for one, I've always looked up to you as a teacher and as a mentor. And so just getting this chance to talk with you today is going to make it's going to make my stress level even lower, because every time I talk to you, I leave with a smile on my face.
I sure hope so.
But before we start on with the questions, there's always one thing I've wondered. Whenever I went to your school, Newberg High School, I would go down Elliott Road. So did Elliott Road come before you or after you?
Elliott Road was there before I got there. So it was named long before.
Well, tell me a little bit. Sorry, go ahead.
Claim that one.
Well, I'm sure that, and we'll get to this later, that when you went in for your job interview at Newberg High School and saw that you're on Elliott Road, there must have been some premonition that this is where you'd be teaching most of your career.
Well, there was a premonition, but my job interview was not at the high school. My job interview for Newberg High School was actually at St. Helens.
St. Helens?
Yeah. Well, there's a little story there. So just real quickly, the second year that I was in Seaside, we took the Seaside Symphonic Band. I had two bands there, to a festival in St. Helens. So we played, and shortly after we got done playing, a gentleman by the name of Gary Donnell, who at that time was the supervisor of music at Newberg, came over to me and he handed me a piece of paper and he says, "Here's a contract, sign up."
That's got to be one of the most easiest job interviews I've ever heard of.
It was.
Well, before we start talking about growing up and your interest in music, I just want to tell everybody that if you do have a question for Dick, have any thoughts, or if you just want to say hello to him, please post a comment down in the comment section on YouTube. So, Dick, where did you grow up?
I grew up in McMinnville. My mom and dad were music teachers, both in McMinnville. My mom was at the college from 1930 to 1974. And my dad started in 1933 at the high school as the high school band director and music supervisor, and went to the college in the late 1930s and was there until the war broke out. So, and then my upbringing was in McMinnville, all the way through elementary school, junior high, and high school.
So I've seen posting with some of our friends on Facebook with their kids, and they've got them playing with an instrument when they're like 1 or 2 years old. When did you start playing an instrument?
I started piano lessons when I was like about 4 or 5, and stayed with that for a few years. And then eventually that kind of went by the wayside. And then I started trumpet in the 4th grade. And that was beginning band at Memorial Elementary School in McMinnville with a gentleman by the name of Ray Cook, who was our elementary band teacher, and he was a violinist of all things. He was not a wind player. So that started in the 4th grade on trumpet.
It's kind of like Ben Brooks, who was a violin player foremost before he did anything else. So you got going on trumpet, and then who is your high school band director?
I had, very fortunate, Dave, junior high and high school both. I had John McManus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he was at the junior high when I started, and then I had him all the way through high school, and that was what a blessing in disguise. It's one of those things that you never know that you're being taught until you go back and realize the lessons that he gave you, and it was an amazing man. But anyway, that was my junior high and high school band director was John McManus. I also had a chance to work with Dave Dirksen for a little bit also.
Those are like amazing musicians and band directors in the state right there.
It's kind of like the dynamic duo.
Definitely. And so also in high school, I know you're an athlete. Did you play any sports in high school?
I did. I was football and track, of all things. And I look at my shape right now, and I'm kind of a little bit, but I was a sprinter in high school and went to state track meet 3 years in a row as a sprinter. So,
wow. And how did you do it? State on track?
well, actually pretty well. My senior year, I placed in the top 3 in both the short dashes. So that was fun. That was good.
I did not know that. That's great. So you're doing the sports and you're in music with some great band directors. Did you decide to go to college and major in music, or did you do something else?
No, I did. When I went to college, it was a music major right from the get-go. Because there's things that you can do for the rest of your life, and there are things that you can't do for the rest of your life. And you're not going to play football all of your life, and you're not going to sprint all the rest of your life, but you can certainly be a band director and a trumpet player for the rest of your life.
Well, and you were talking yesterday. You're still practicing the trumpet.
Oh, if there's a blessing about the sequester thing, is I get a chance to practice a lot more now in my kitchen with my practice mute.
I'm sure you've got a great critic with your wife, Judy.
Oh, she does. Yeah, you're so right there.
Well, when you were in college and your major in music, where did you go to school?
I went to Linfield. And actually, Dave, I went to Linfield. It sounds a little odd, out of necessity more than anything else. My mom being on faculty there, I got the faculty brat tuition scholarship, and I live at home. So it was just kind of a no-brainer. Ira Lee did recruit me to come to the University of Oregon. And I just, and I had good friends that went there, and it was just, it just wasn't in the cards. So I went to Linfield for 4 years, got my bachelor's there, actually a Bachelor of Arts with a major in music education, and then went on to Illinois Wesleyan University for my master's degree in performance.
Oh, and did you do that then right after your bachelor's degree?
Went right on, got it out of the way, and so I wouldn't have to mess around with it over the years and try and finish that master's degree. So spent a year in Illinois, couldn't wait to get back to the Valley. So,
yeah, there's a lot of people that have moved from the Midwest that are living in Oregon right now.
Well, that's where my parents grew up. My mom and dad were both from Illinois, and that's actually where they met, was at Illinois Wesleyan. And then mom graduated from there, and she had a choice. When she graduated from Wesleyan, she was a very fine soprano, a very fine coloratura. She had a choice of going to Chicago and singing as an understudy with the Chicago Opera Company, or coming out to Linfield and starting a choir. So in 1930, she hopped in her automobile and drove out across country by herself to start a choir at Linfield.
Wow, that can be really scary.
It was. I mean, she was by herself. My dad stayed in Illinois until around 1933, and mom finally said, "Hey, listen, I'm not going to leave. If you want to get married, you got to come out here." So he did.
Well, so you got your degree in performance.
Mm-hmm.
When you got your degree in performance, did you want to try to make it as a trumpet player, or did you want to go right into teaching?
No, I wanted to go right into teaching. How do I want to say this, Dave? At the time, I was a decent trumpet player, but not to a point where I'm going to be a symphony player. Although I did audition with the Oregon Symphony and with Jacques Singer, but it was just I'm a teacher, and that's what I wanted to do. So I had plenty of opportunity to play in Illinois and here. When John McManus started the Salem Concert Band, I was principal trumpet with that group, with, again, a terrific trumpet section with Dave Dirksen and Grant Hagestad and John Delaney and people like that. It was just a great section. So, but I've had plenty of chances to play. Now it's a chance to pick up the horn and practice and just practice.
So did you do your student teaching at Linfield, or when did you do your student teaching?
I did my student teaching my senior year at Linfield with John McManus. Again.
So that's different, because most people they're pushed not to do the student teaching at their school. They wanted to do get a different experience with the different teacher.
Well, actually, I shared my student teaching with John Delaney. We both student taught with Mr. McManus. You notice I say Mr. McManus. I can't call him John. We shared our student teaching with him during, it was actually John Delaney's 5th year at Oregon and my 4th year at Linfield. So again, how can you miss? You're working with the master, and you have choices. I could have gone someplace else to do student teaching, but I chose not to.
Well, it's hard to say no to Mr. McManus if he's offering to be your student teacher, because there's really none better.
Absolutely. And it was a great experience. John gave us a little bit of leeway, both John Delaney and myself, to work with different ensembles, to work with the band. And we both then went to the middle school, to the junior high, where Dave Dirksen was teaching at that time. So we were able to work with Dave with the junior high kids in McMinnville. So,
for the people that don't know, who is John Delaney?
John Delaney is another McMinnville product. He and I both went through the McMinnville High School band. John's a year ahead of me. When he graduated from University of Oregon, he came back to McMinnville as working with the concert bands, but his main focus was with the jazz ensembles. John's a great trumpet player and a terrific teacher, and he then took the jazz ensembles of McMinnville and brought them into a point where they were just regionally very, very well known and a terrific reputation. So John was there for a number of years, and then went to Salem and bought a music store, Will's Music in Salem. That lasted for a while. Then he went to be an administrator, a vice principal in Salem. And so he's been kind of, doing one of these things, but a terrific individual, very talented, great trumpet player, still playing, and good friend. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was thinking, so after John, did Chris Brouillet follow John? Because McMinnville, since I was in college, had such a strong jazz program, among other things. And I'm just now finding out how that jazz program got started.
Yeah, and that was John Delaney that got it going. Chris is in there someplace. When John McManus left, Don Scott came in as doing the concert bands, and then Don and John Delaney worked together for a while. And then Don left, and then there was this succession of band directors at McMinnville since then. And John Delaney then worked that program as a jazz ensemble for, I can't remember, Dave, how long he was there, but it was a goodly number of years before he left.
So you got done with your student teaching, and so now it's time to get a job. And tell me about your first job.
My first job was in Seaside. I had come out during spring break from Illinois Wesleyan during March to specifically look for a job. And I had 2 job interviews, one of them which was in Seaside, and very positive, and they offered me a contract, and I thought, geez, okay, I'm single. I've always wanted to live at the coast, so let's do it. And I took that job in Seaside, followed a gentleman by the name of Rudy Dimitrovich, who really put a great stamp on that program. It was a terrific program when I started there. Great kids, and they played really, really well.
That sounds like a perfect job for a first-year teacher.
It was, and plus the fact, just being in Seaside, not taking advantage of all the tourist things, but get to go fishing every so often and go dig a clam every so often, and it was really a fun experience. It was fun.
I think it's important to realize that when you are, especially for younger teachers that are watching this, to take advantage of wherever you're at. If you're at the beach, or if you're in Central Oregon, or if you're in Lakeview, that really helps keep your energy up, and you enjoy yourself so much more.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And great colleagues that were in Seaside at that time, a couple of Linfield people that I went to school with. And that made it just a little bit easier to work into that culture. It's a little different culture when you're on the coast as to when you are in the valley. But it was, again, the kids were terrific. It was interesting. When I got my contract, it was to be the 2 high school bands, the 2 junior high bands, and then 2 grade schools. 2 weeks before my first year started, the principal called and he said, "Oh, hey, Dick, by the way, we redid your contract. You don't have the high school choir along with with the band." So I was on the phone. "Hey, Mom."
Yeah. But fortunately, you had a good mentor for that, and anybody wanted to, or if you had a question to ask, it was just a quick phone call home.
Boy, it was. And then she was kind enough to come up and spend some time with me to work, kind of help me across the bridge to get into the choir itself. I had a good choral background just being around her all the time. And I, sang in the college choir and did her church choir. And so I had that background, and she did lessons at our house. So I would sit out and listen to all of her comments that she would make to her private students. And that was fun. That really kind of eased that, what's the right word? That, I can't think of the right word.
The transition.
Right. So anyway, high school choir was fun. I did that 2 years when I was up there.
And when you're in a small town like Seaside, or smaller town like Seaside, sometimes we get asked to do any coaching. Did you do any coaching while you were there?
No, I didn't. I was asked to do a church choir, but to kind of take the edge off of just to kind of do something a little bit different. This is a little weird. I got involved with the North Coast Officials League. So I was able to officiate freshman and JV football games.
Well, that's fun. And also, too, when that happens, even though you're officiating, and same thing with coaching, you just get a little bit more cred with your students, and you have an even greater chance of keeping the athletes involved.
Yeah. And that was important. So that was, to know that you are more than, you're kind of a multifaceted kind of person.
Well, you're at Seaside for 2 years, and then what did you do?
I got the offer from Gary Donnell. I got the offer to come to Newberg, and his whole premise on that was, we need somebody to stabilize the program. And I asked him, I said, "Well, what do you mean, Gary? I'm not sure." And he said, "Well, if you take the job, you're going to be the 6th band director that we have had in 6 years." Wow. Including one guy that just quit in the middle of the year. And then Gary had to take the rest of the band along with the choirs for that particular year. Then I stepped in, and Dave, I'll tell you, the first time that I walked into the high school band room on the very first day, there were 33 kids sitting in that high school band room. And as I was looking around the room, I didn't see one smile, not any smile at all. And it was all like, okay, there's another one. Let's going to see how long he's going to last.
Yeah.
I remember telling them at that point, I said, you're in here to learn. I'm in here for the long run. And as it turned out, it was a long run.
Well, with that the first week or two, and seeing the look in the kids' face, I know it takes a while to get the program to be yours. And what did you do, or did you do anything specifically to help turn that program around?
Well, yeah, I did. It was more than anything else, Dave. It was an attitude kind of thing. The kids played well. It's just that they had a defeatist kind of attitude. Just people would leave and they would say, "Oh, you don't play well. You do this, you do that." So the very first thing I tried to do was give those kids a goal. Here's something for you to work towards. And it's going to be, it's going to be a musical goal, of course, and it's going to be a performance goal. But at the same time, you're giving those kids strokes enough that you improve their attitude, you improve their outlook towards the program. And it took a while. We started with 33 kids, but by the 3rd year, I was able to add a second band. And we had a great feeder program, a lady by the name of Jean Sevier that had the junior high program. She was a great feeder. And then when she left, we had a succession of really fine middle school band directors. And with the numbers that came along, like I say, in 3 years, I was able to add a second band. And after about 6 or 7 years, I was able to add a third band. So it took a while, but yeah, you can change the culture. You can change the attitude. It's a positive thing, but it's an honest positive. You're not a hypocrite. So,
right. And just getting the kids feeling successful, that's just such a huge part of it. And they probably did not have as much success in those previous 6 years.
well, the first year, and particularly the first semester of that first year, you're very careful about the music that you select. I went back and looked at programs that the band had done previous years to see where they were. I listened to some recordings of the year previous. Then I was able to kind of get a handle of where to start. So you're putting some music out there that the kids are successful with, that they still have to work at, but there are places that you can rehearse, make them feel good musically, give them a success. And it's one of those things that takes a while, absolutely. But there's that carrot that's out there at the end that people are working for.
Yeah, and Michael Birchpace has just put in a comment. I don't know if you can see the comments on how to select the literature that is bands performed. And so you kind of talked about that. And when you have bands that are small, like a 33-piece band, what did you do, maybe the first couple of years, really how did you select music that would make your kids successful?
Well, I don't know, can you hear me now? There's a lawnmower that started up across the street over there. Are we still okay with that?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Just don't volunteer to go mow the lawn. Stay
No,
here
I'm
with us.
riding more. I break a foot. The thing that I tried to do in selecting music was give the kids a chance to grow. One of the things that was really fun about the time that I started was that we had lots of mentors, and Dave Durson was one. There was a reading session that was at Will's Music that actually John started when he was there, that was attended by it's like the Lewis and Clark reading section that Dave Becker did, except it was in Salem. But that was a chance to look at literature and talk to people and listen to recordings and kind of get an idea, well, here's where the band is. That first month or two, it was an experiment. Well, let's look at this piece. You don't want to play down to the kids to give them a feeling like it's just, okay, this is another little piece that we can whip out just like that. But you don't want to be so difficult that they just are, we can't play this. You find that middle of the road. Well, once I found that middle of the road, then we would work to that level. But then the next piece that I would do, I would give that just a little bit of a nudge, kind of give them that little extra impetus to get to that next level. And we would kind of stair step then. And it took us a while to do the stair steps. But in choosing literature, you choose the strength of the band, yes, but you also choose to the majority of the band to give them that success, that, they can feel like, we did do something that was positive. We did do something that was, something that we can be proud of more than anything else. So choice of literature is absolutely critical. It doesn't make any difference what level you are at, beginning, intermediate, high school, collegiate. Choice of literature is absolutely critical. You do a lot of investigating, you do a lot of listening, but more than anything else, you do a lot of interplay with your own students to see where they are.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. And that was always the hardest part of my job. In fact, I asked you for some advice a number of times on literature because your knowledge is so great. But during your time at Newberg, one of the things that really impressed me about your band program is that your numbers were huge, just enormous, and especially with your top band. So what was your philosophy about auditioning or getting kids into your top group?
Okay. Let me relate a little story for you if I can right here. You mentioned to me earlier that Pat had a question for me. In one of the articles that Pat wrote when he was president of the organization, he absolutely chewed me up one side and out the other by saying, if I cut the band program and if I took the top 40 or 35 or 40 kids out of that whole kids that I had, you would place in the top 3 or 4 at state every year. Well, that's not my philosophy. My idea was that I want to give the kid that maybe is a B flat kid that is maybe sits in the back of the room or sits in the middle of the section that doesn't have a success anywhere else, but he comes into the band program, and I've got 80 or 85 kids. Those kids are all juniors and seniors with a few sophomores mixed in, but they are kids that have stuck with the program. They deserve to be there. They're not the greatest players in the world, but they're great kids. They work, and you give them that opportunity to be in a group that is a successful group, rather than being in a group that is, I hate to say it this way, but that a group that is a hand-picked elitist group. That, for me, that kind of defeated the purpose. And my philosophy was, if I had a senior, for example, that by the time they got to the second semester of their senior year, if they were still in concert band in the second band, I would automatically put them up in the top group. There. So we would go to state, and I would put on the stage 85 kids on stage. And then we would go to the sight reading room, and the guy would say, "Oh, you can't put that many kids in the room. You have to eliminate 20 kids." And that was always hard. But my philosophy was, I wanted to give those kids an opportunity to be a success in one way or another, to be a part of a group that was a success, to be part of a group that, you have the high achievers, and they can work into that level. They can work up to where those achievers are. So that was kind of my philosophy. Competitive? Yeah, sure. We are all competitive to an extent, but not to the extent where I wanted to eliminate kids from that opportunity to have that success.
And that's one of the reasons your numbers were huge, because they found that success, and they found that they were a part of a successful program. Even in their little way, they are part of that success, which leads me to Pat Vandehey's question.
Well, let me just say one thing real quick, about the size of the program.
Sure.
I had 2 middle school band directors in the last, 15, 16 years that I was there, with Dave Sanders and Ken Clark. And talk about gems. They would give me kids that, as 9th graders, they had all the fundamentals. They had all the notes, they had all the rhythms, they had all this, all I had to do was put the icing on the cake. And it was just phenomenal. We had a great working relationship for a number of years. But those 2 guys, they're responsible for giving me the program that I had.
Oh, and that's actually was my next question about, because I do know the junior high program was incredible. And when you have great teachers, it really does help when you've got the kids coming in prepared and they're ready for a good high school experience.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, here's Pat's question.
Okay.
Oh, how many years were you at Newberg High School?
38.
38 years. Well, in your 38 years in Newberg, your energy and your enthusiasm is just amazing. You're always up, it seems. How did you keep this up for 38 years without burning out?
Diversions. Okay, as a high school band director, and anybody that's been in the high school knows that there are just hours and hours and hours that you spend with pep bands and with shows, and you spend that much time, but you set a priority. And my priority was, okay, I have the job, but I have a family. I have a wife. I have 2 kids that are just the apple of my eye. Krista and Mark, if you're watching, I never told you that, but you guys are just amazing. But you have the family, and you take that family and you work that to a point where you have something to look forward to every day that you go home from work. And it could be that maybe, you go back for a pep band, you go back for a show, you go back for a game, but you always come home to that family. But then I also got involved with different kinds of things to kind of get away from the job. Judy's dad was quite a fisherman, and he taught me how to fish. So then I had a couple of good friends that decided, well, Dick, we're going to teach you how to play golf. Well, okay, I can pick up the ball and throw it as far as I can get it, I suppose. But You get into those kinds of things to kind of break that process of just job related. There's more to an individual band director than just being a band director. You've got to be a family man. You've got to be kind of a jack of all trades. There's just one of the reasons that I think I was able to last as long as I did was that the kids in the band, we would feed off of each other. I had just, almost every year I had a number of kids that were athletes. I had a number of kids that were involved in different kinds of activities. So I would go watch kids play football, or I'd go watch them do this, watch them do that. It's a diversion, and able to keep that energy going. You walk into the classroom and you think, okay, you've got to come to that same amount of energy that the kids are displaying in the rehearsal. And with 85 kids, sometimes that was a little difficult, but you do it anyway.
And that is, I think, something that band directors are struggling right now, is by doing the remote teaching and not having that energy from the students in front of them. That's causing a lot of stress.
I just can't imagine how that's going. I've talked to different band directors. How is the distance thing going? Well, we're only making 50% of the kids that we're making contact with. We're trying to do this. We're trying to do the online distance learning by Zoom and by other things. And they said it's just not working. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen if school really resumes next fall to the ensembles when they have the social distancing aspect, and then I just can't imagine how this is going to work. But people are resilient, people are innovative. If you look out there, you look at like at Todd Zimbelman, some of the things that he's doing. You look at some of the other folks that are out there that just have terrific ideas. Frank Petricus, I'm just all of these names that people can go to a resource and say, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? But the distance learning thing is, I just can't imagine it. You and I, Dave, never had those kinds of issues. We were able to look at our kids in the eye every day. And unfortunately, we can't do this now.
And that's one thing that is a big difference today, and this is a new challenge. But we've had challenges from our first year of teaching. If it's going to be budget or scheduling, we've had crises all the way through, and everything has worked itself out in some fashion. So if you're going to give advice to any teacher right now that's going through this, what advice would you give them to help them through this?
Through this, the distance learning aspect of what you're talking about, Dave?
Being a teacher.
Being a teacher. That's really a loaded question. I think the advice that I would give the people is, first of all, talk to other people. Talk to mentors, talk to people that have been in the business for a while. Particularly if you're a young teacher, if you're coming out just maybe your first or second year out, and you're kind of in a quandary of how to do this, go to somebody that has been in the business for a while, that they have a successful program, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, I need some advice, I need some help. And that would be one thing that I would advise them to do. The second thing I would advise them to do is to get involved with their professional organizations, because a lot of times I'm looking at the OBDA site right now, and people are saying, well, let's try this. We've been doing this. We've been doing that. Different kinds of platforms that they are using to get to the distance learning. The advice is try not to do too much all at once. In situations like this where we are in a new normal, there are baby steps that you have to take. And actually, if we were not in this, and if you were coming out as a first or second year, you would still have those same little baby steps that you have to take. But to talk to people that have been there, Look at resources. Look at what OBDA has to say. Look at maybe some other resource like the National Association when they talk about what's happening in the different programs around the country. It's just, and then I think at the risk of being, not too far, but experiment. Try this program. If that doesn't work, try this. If that doesn't work, go something else. But don't be afraid to be innovative. That somehow or other you're going to have to attract those kids to get them back into your program. And it's your connection with them, and it's your connection with that outside aspect of bringing the program back into the fold. I guess I'm kind of rambling here, and I apologize.
It's a very hard question, and one of the hard parts is that nobody has an answer. They don't know what's going to be happening this upcoming year. So I think that was fine. But you're talking about connections with the students, and you had some amazing connections, I'm sure, throughout the years. What is your favorite Newberg High School band story?
Oh my gosh. After 38 years, Dave, come on, give me a break.
What's the one thing that comes to mind right off the bat?
Right off the bat. We played at Western International Band Clinic in, right after 9/11. There was a band from Georgia that was supposed to go and be one of the concert hour bands at Wibbick. And then their principal decided after 9/11 that they were not going to fly. So Max McKee called me right after that, about the 1st of October or so. And he said, Dick, I'd like to have you bring your band up and play an hour concert for Wibbick. So we had about a month and a half to put together an hour program. And it was one of those things, Dave, we went up there, played our program, and the only way I can describe it is it was just electric. Bob Ponto, I remember, was sitting in the very front row, and I'm thinking, holy cow, what a critic. We got done with the show. Bob was up on the stage, gave me a great big hug, and he said, I don't know how you did it, but it was just amazing, amazing. That was one of the best performances that I think we've ever had. And we've had, really good performances at state, but that's one that really stands out, that it was just, the kids all bought into it real quick, and when we got up on stage, it was electric. It was just one of those things and you've had those, and we've all had those kinds of performances where everything just bang, bang, bang. And that one was fun. That one was really, really fun.
Yeah, I used to remember there was some times just like that, and the hair just raised up in your arm, and you can see it in the kids' eyes. I'm sure that you had the same experience you looked at the kids and they had that connection that was really special.
Yeah, and it was.
So getting back to with your festivals and contests, you've done a lot of state band contests. Mm-hmm. And you've also done a lot of judging, and you and I've judged a lot. And one of my fond memories of you is going into the sight reading room at George Fox University, where you did the sight reading every year. Uh-huh. It was usually about 90 degrees in there, or so it seemed.
Yes.
And one of the things that you did such a great job with is you made the kids smile. And you made them feel important. You gave them some things that they needed to practice on, but you just had a great way with the kids in that sight reading room. So here's another question. Another sight reading room story that you have.
Okay. Chuck Bolton, when he had the state band contest, there was a sight reading judge for the 4As that all of a sudden had to back out. So Chuck called me and he said, can you come down and do the sight reading for the 4As at the state? So I did. I went down, and that was, again, one of those really amazing experiences. Those kids would come in after they come off the stage just in fear and trepidation about, sight reading. I got to do sight reading. There's this old man up there that's just. So you put the kids at ease. You go through all your spiel about Okay, this is the way it's going to go, and so on and so forth. But you talk to them with a little twinkle in your eye, and you talk to them with a smile. And then after they're done, you find one or two things that, you can pick up on, and you can talk with the kids. You work with them a little bit. And it's not like, okay, it's just, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this. It was, for me, it was, you did this, and you did that, and you did this. So let's work on the positives. And that's the way that we did. But I always tried to make the kids feel good about what they did, rather than walking out of the room shaking their head and saying, God, that was the worst experience we've ever had. Sight reading can be traumatic. Sometimes, I don't know, you have gone to different festivals, and I have taken my band to different festivals, where you walk into the sight reading room, the guy's sitting back there behind the desk, and he's looking like, death warmed over. And you just, that attitude goes right into how the kids are going to perform for that. I always had fun. I always had a great time, and I always enjoyed what you would do. You're up there, and the very first thing you do is pull out your stopwatch. And just, I never had to say, Dave, at 2 minutes, we're going to do this, and at 7 minutes, we're going to do that. You were always right there. You're always a step ahead of me on that. So
the comment that I remember from you that you gave to me with my band is, I can't remember what contest it was, but we sight read really well. And one of my traditions is that I would wear reading glasses that my daughter would give me. And I've got blue ones with different colors. And the glasses that I had were red with little diamond sparkles. And you'd said to me, to the band, I said, well, the way you guys sight read, you can wear whatever glasses you want. And the kids got a good chuckle out of that.
Oh, good.
With the state band contest, if you could change one thing about the state band contest, either sight reading or the floor or anything, what's one thing you would do differently?
Oh boy, I could get into hot water on this one real fast. But
you're retired. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I might take a little bit of flack on this one. All right. My idea behind the state band contest is first of all, those kids are working their fannies off to qualify to get there to begin with. All right. They have to meet that performance standard before they can even walk up on the stage. All right. So they have already achieved that level of performance. So once they get there, my whole idea is that it's got to be a festival. It's got to be an event of celebration. All right. So that, if a band really just knocks it out of the park, and they look at their scores and they would qualify, a particular score, they're going to get a particular award. And I am not, I'm just going to lay it right out there on the line. Okay. And for those of you who are listening, if you don't agree with me, then, that's your prerogative. State contest should be a state celebration, and bands should be awarded either like a gold, silver, or a bronze medal, depending on how they play. I don't necessarily agree with placing bands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the 6A level all the way down through 20. Again, those kids have worked really, really hard to get there. And for me, it's a festival of celebration. That's one thing that I would change. As far as the format goes, I would not change anything. Still, one of the things that I appreciated about sight reading, and particularly adjudicating sight reading, is that when you walk into the sight reading room, you get to see some teaching. You see what the person in front of the band really does on a daily basis. Well, so in that case, I would still continue with the sight reading aspect of the state band contest. I think that's viable. Because there, the gentleman, whoever, or the person that's in front of the band, they do teach, and the kids will learn from that. So no, I would not change that aspect. The thing that, again, I would change is how, I guess for lack of a better term, how you do an award kind of thing. So that's my feeling.
Well, I like the word celebration, and when you were looking for the word, that's the one word that I came up with as well. the celebrate. I think that's great. And I agree with you. The sight reading, not only do I enjoy adjudicating that more than I do on the floor, but I love just watching teachers teach.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When we would do sight reading at George Fox, I would always invite the kids that were, prospective band directors that were in our student MENC group, come in, and watch so-and-so, watch so-and-so, watch so-and-so, but come in and take notes and see how these people teach in front of it, because they're not going to get a chance to go out and observe in the classroom at a particular school, but they can come into a sight reading room and get an idea how this, like yourself, how you relate to the kids, the processes that you go through in order to get the ideas across. You teach. And I would always encourage the kids to come in and watch these people so you get an idea. In the performance aspect, it's a completely different ballgame. There's really, all of the teaching has gone way before that. So that's just a matter of getting up on the stage and playing. But the sight reading room is completely different.
Well, and I forgot about this part. So you're at Newberg for 38 years,
Mhm.
but you were also the trumpet instructor at Oregon College of Education, which is
I
now
was.
Western Oregon University, which was Western State College, which was a whole bunch of things.
Yeah.
And I first met you as a trumpet teacher there.
Mm-hmm. Yourself and Paul Shimmings and Dave Franks and Steve Serra. That was a great group. We had all kinds of fun, and you guys were just, you look at where you are now and you're all tremendously successful. Although Steve Serra bailed out, the dog.
Yeah, and Steve Serra worked for you as one of your junior high teachers.
He student taught for me. And then after he got done with his student teaching, when Gene Severe left, he took the junior high program there for a while.
So you were at, again, Newberg for 38 years, then you retired, and then you went to George Fox.
Mm-hmm.
What was your role teaching in George Fox?
Okay. When I retired from, if you want to call it that, from the high school in the spring of 2006. And I hadn't been away from school for any more than maybe a week or two. And Lauren Wenz, who at that time was the department chair at Fox, called and said, hey, if you want to come to work, I've got a job for you. Really? Yeah. And he said, so come in. That's when I got my chance to work with Pat Van de Heye. And we spent 11 years together working that band program. And that was an incredible 11 years. We were kind of like Batman and Robin. And, Pat was the big guy, and he would throw me a carrot every so often that I could come and work with the band. But for those 11 years, Pat and I worked together. I was also asked then to take the student chapter of our music educators group. And that was, at that time, it was, they were good kids. They just were not very active. And we were asked, and I can't remember who the president was at that particular time, if we would coordinate the volunteers, the collegiate volunteers, for a state conference. And that was kind of an interesting experience because we had really no idea how to do it. So we kind of invented the wheel on that. But for 10 years that I was there, actually more than that, 11 years, we did all of the student coordinating for the state conference. We did for the Northwest Conference. And it was a big job. We had to provide all of the volunteers for housing. We had to provide all the volunteers for the area managers, for the guest conductors, and then do all of the timeline. Well, we need to have this person here, there. But I always was able to delegate that to really, what I thought at that time was just a terrific organized student. And of course, I would always look over their shoulder, but I gave them that opportunity to grow and to mature into an organizational skill that probably they're going to need when they get out into the field anyway. So that was a real blessing as far as we were concerned, to have those kids be working as volunteers. And actually, that was to our advantage in the sense that there was just a real quick little sidelight. At one of the conferences at our booth, there was a gentleman that came over and he said, well, I'm an elementary principal from Klamath Falls, and I need somebody to do elementary music, and I've been watching your kids work. I want somebody from Fox. No place else. I want somebody from Fox. So those kids were able to put that on their resume, and it was really good to be able to do that. So I had.
I was saying, and you just never know when
Yeah,
those opportunities are going to come up.
you don't. So I worked with those kids. I taught a couple of classes that were gen ed classes. I had a class called World of Music that was 50 kids in the class with no majors or minors. I had a lot of nursing kids and football players, and I had a great time with that group. And then Pat and I worked together. I did some trumpet things. And then when Pat left, the 1 year that we were in transition before we hired Dwayne Corbin, that particular year I had the band for that year, and that was a stellar year. We just had a great time. And I remember spring concert was the 100th anniversary of Leonard Bernstein, so we did an all Bernstein program, and we did the Bernstein Mass. That it was just incredible. I go back and I look at that and I think, geez, did we really do that? Oh yeah, we did. So well, I was there for 13 years, and just this past year now I've kind of cut ties with Fox.
So did you start conducting the Newberg Community Band at that time, or did you do that while you're still teaching at Newberg?
No, I started the community band when I left the high school. So we started in the fall of 2006, the same year that I started at George Fox. We started with 30 people, and eventually, so we've been in existence since then. And one of the people that's on our board went back, looked at the the list of people at one time or another that had played in the group, and it was over 200. So right now, the band right now is about 60 to 65 that are consistent members.
So I know you won't be able to give me an exact number, but approximately how many of those people in the Newberg Community Band were members of your band?
Okay, there's a lawnmower that's going by the street there. Can you still hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So what was your question again, Dave?
How many, or what percentage of people in the Newberg Community Band were in the Newberg High School Band with you as the director?
Oh my gosh. If I just off the top of my head, probably right now, maybe 14 or 15 that were students of mine at the high school, but then I have students that were also at the college. So, just former students out of the 60, we're probably around, maybe, 20 to 25 that are in there.
Well, and that's, again, saying that, and Pat and I were talking about you, that you really are a celebrity in Newberg, and you can't go down the street with someone saying hello to you, and the positive things that you've done for the Newberg, not only the school, but for the entire community. I can't give you enough commendation for it.
Well, thank you, Dave. I certainly do appreciate that, and just the longevity of being, but I've got to give credit to my wife too. She taught for 25 years as a third grade teacher in Newberg. So not only people kind of say, oh, hey, Mr. E, it's, oh, hey, Mrs. Elliott, I had you in third grade for reading, or I remember when we dissected squid, or, so she is just as much as a celebrity in town as I would care to be. Let's put it that way.
Well, our time is almost up. If someone else has a comment, they can post it now. But my last question for you is, would you rather spend your day crabbing or fishing?
Crabbing, without a doubt. I'm not a good fisherman. I was up at Hag Lake a couple of days ago, and it was a beautiful day. I always do very well crabbing, so I would be out there in a heartbeat.
Well, hopefully we'll get a chance to get out crabbing soon.
Well, we've talked about that, so I've got a little boat, the SS Poseidon, and it's ready to go anytime.
Well, maybe I won't go out on that boat. I'm not quite sure.
I'll remember to put the plug in.
Well, Dick, our time's about up. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon talking with me and going through the history of yourself and the programs. And if I could choose a band director that my daughter would go through the program with, you would be that band director.
Oh, Dave, I appreciate that so much, particularly from you. And I just appreciate the fact that we were able to share. And I thank you for that opportunity. You're a terrific individual, and this whole program that you're doing it's wonderful. I hope people are able to gain some insight from it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I don't have next week's guest quite lined up. I do have a couple of people close. So I'll let people know through Facebook when that will be and who it is. And also, if you have any recommendations on how I can improve this, please don't hesitate to message me or email me. So thank you, and I'll see you next week.
Good. Thank you, Dave.